This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by Audible, a leading provider of spoken audio information and entertainment. Listen to audiobooks whenever and wherever you want. To get a free audiobook, visit audiblepodcast.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the Talk of the Mac community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this time I get to welcome for the first time to MacVoices Greg Maletic from Panic Software. I think it's the first time for Greg and the first time for Panic on MacVoices. He's here to talk about the iOS app Statusboard. Greg, it's great to have you. Thanks so much for coming.
Oh, no problem, Chuck. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Greg, I don't mind saying before we get to Statusboard that I'm a fan of Panic. I've used Unison somewhere near forever. I've used a lot of your software. You're one of those houses that just puts out a lot of good stuff, and you always have. What is it about that? Is it the culture? Is it the people? Or are you just dumb lucky?
Thank you. Well, I mean, unfortunately, I can't take credit for all of that. I've been at Panic for about 3 years now, and I've worked on some sort of special consulting projects as well as working on Statusboard during that time. But Panic has a long track record of being really responsive to its customers. We have great tech support, and also just do an excellent job, I think, of divining what the customers are looking for and the kind of quality that customers are looking for. So we try and treat developer tools the same way that Apple treats consumer software. We want to make it as approachable and as fun to use as we possibly can. And so that approach seems to be working pretty well.
I would say so. You guys are up in Portland, right?
We are, yes, Portland, Oregon.
There's something in the water up there. There's so many great companies up there. I don't know what it is.
It's a very great community. I came here from San Francisco about 3 years ago, like I said, and I love it. It's just a very easygoing place that's focused on quality of life, and it's just a nice, fun atmosphere.
That's great. Well, I've never been there. I hope someday to swing by and see what it's all about. But
Absolutely.
I'm afraid I may never want to leave the way you all talk about it.
Yeah, please stop by.
So, Statusboard. Statusboard seemed to cause an interesting little stir when it came out. I'm not sure if it was because of the app, because it was from Panic, or the combination. But it's an app that I'm sure there's some competitors out there, but nobody seems to have done it quite as nicely as you all have.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, we haven't seen much like it on the iPad specifically. There have been a few web-based solutions that I'm aware of. And they seem pretty nice, but they also are a little on the complex side in terms of both setting them up and also just kind of paying for them. A lot of them have a monthly charge that you go by, and a lot of developers kind of recoil at the thought of that. So we thought we could put it on the iPad, make it as simple as possible, make it very straightforward, and we like the idea of the iPad being a device as opposed to just being, Statusboard being a piece of software that runs through a web browser. The idea that your Statusboard will become a physical thing through the iPad, that idea was really interesting to us.
At this point, I'm afraid we're both, and it's my fault getting ahead of us, I'm going to let you describe Statusboard. I know what it is. Probably a lot of the listeners and viewers will know, but not everyone. So how would you describe Statusboard?
Sure. Well, I can hold it up here on my iPad. Let's see. Let's bring it up. This is an example. Boy, can you see that at all?
No, I've got just... Is it on?
It is on. That's fascinating. Well, I learned something new about the camera on the...
Oh, God.
Boy, that's really interesting. You can't do an iPad.
No. Well, I'll tell you what, you can send me some screenshots. I can drop them in there, and then
no problem.
We'll
that's
see.
Really interesting. No, that's just a fascinating thing we learned. Anyway, the Statusboard is a way to view your data as beautifully as possible on your iPad. You can pull data from all sorts of sources, from your email, from Twitter, from your calendar, from RSS and Atom feeds, and almost anything you can think of, and bring it together in one place to present it. So you or your work group can look at the data quickly at a glance, see what's going on, either individually or in your organization. We started using a Statusboard here at Panic about probably 4 years ago. We created a solution out of HTML and put it on a big HDTV in our office here to show things like our support queue and current projects and due dates and weather and all sorts of things like that. And we loved it, and people that stopped by our office seemed to love it too. And so that gave us the thought, well, this thing looks like a giant iPad. Why don't we make an iPad version of this as a product so anyone can do this? And so that's what I started working on probably 18, 24 months ago, something like that. And we spent a lot of time trying to get it all right. And eventually, about, I guess, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, we came out with version 1.0 on the iPad. And like I said, it's for making your data as beautiful and as easy to view as possible.
And that, to me, is, I think, one of the key things. It is gorgeous, even if it has data that I don't necessarily need. I want to put it up there and look at it because it just looks so good. And
well, thanks.
You put it up on a big screen TV, and wow, it looks even better. I mean, this is the command center that everyone wants. I think everyone who's in business would like to have this somewhere in their office. And now, not only can I have it, but I can customize it to the things that just I want and need to see.
Yeah, we hope so. I mean, we tried to focus less on, we try to make it very flexible on the back end. We can import data in a JSON format or a CSV format, then put it in a graph or a table for you. But we don't really care as much where the data comes from. I mean, we debated the idea of trying to put in a bunch of pre-built data sources that would align, very closely with existing things out there, but there are just too many, to be honest. And so we thought, well, let's just make it as generic as we possibly can, and then let the users, format the data the way that we'll need it, and then we'll just focus on making it attractive and presentable. And so far, that approach seems to be working out okay.
I know that I'm probably going to get some nasty emails from this, but that's okay. I compare Statusboard with the Windows Metro interface. Mm-hmm. Windows Metro always seems to be blinking and sliding and popping and jumping, and Statusboard doesn't. Statusboard is it's not static by any means, but it's very calm. It doesn't demand my attention. It tells me what I need when I want to give it attention, and that seems to be a huge difference in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I think we wanted to make it not distracting, certainly. And I guess one advantage we have over Metro is that we're in control of everything. Whereas in a Metro screen, every app developer is kind of assuming they're the only one on the screen. So they put up photos and put up, alerts and so on, where they're all fighting to get your attention. And for our panels, they're not fighting for your attention. We already have your attention because your Statusboard's up on your iPad. So we try to actually keep it low key once you've already got us running.
Greg, let's talk about a little bit about some of the kinds of data that you can display. We jumped through some general things there. You support RSS feeds. You support CSV data. How does one go about taking any of those things and bringing it into Statusboard?
Sure. What you do is drag out a panel of the kind of data that you'd like to display. So, for example, let's just choose Twitter. I can drag out a Twitter panel onto my Statusboard. Then I specify my data sources, in which case, typically that would be my Twitter account, but it could also be my company's Twitter account, or it could be a collection of Twitter accounts, which is something that we do at Panic, which is we have everyone at Panic's Twitter account loaded in there, and then we can view everyone's tweets on the Statusboard. Anyway, you set up those sources. Then what you do next is specify how you'd like to view them. So you can view them as a list, which you can scroll through. You can set them up as a ticker, which will go through one by one every 10 seconds or so and show you each tweet individually. Or you can also graph the data as well. And what we try and do is pre-compute some data about your tweets that we think might be interesting to you. So, for example, we'll show you how many tweets per day that you're putting out, or whatever data source you're looking at is putting out. Tweets per hour, so you can kind of see the curve of how often people are putting on information on Twitter, and so you can view them in any one of those formats that you'd like, and position it anywhere you want on the screen. Now you can do that with Twitter, but you can also do it with RSS and Atom feeds, for example. So you can have all different data sources. You can have New York Times, Daring Fireball, The Verge, etc. Whatever RSS feed you can think of. And we can do the same thing, show it as a list, ticker, or graph. And so we have a couple of pre-built things like that. I already mentioned RSS and Twitter, but there's email as well. There's your calendar. And then where it gets even more interesting is where we have some custom panels that you can use. One is just simply a custom graph. And all you do is you specify a URL that has some pre-formatted JSON data that you populate through whatever process that you're collecting data from. And then we'll try and make the most attractive graph we can possibly make out of that data and make it as easy to read as we possibly can. So, for instance, here at work, we show things like customers that requesting app updates. We can track and see how often customers are launching their app, and then seeing how often they try and update their app. We can show things like our support queue and how many emails we have coming in at any given moment and how many we have going out, so we can track our productivity of our support team. And you can make this do anything. Actually, one of our developers has a beehive at home, and he has a device set up on his beehive that tracks bees coming in and bees going out. And so on his status board, he can see exactly when they're leaving the hive and when they're coming back in the evening. It's pretty incredible. And so you can use this, obviously, to display any kind of data you want.
Gee, I got to wrap my head around that last one.
Yeah.
So, and I guess this is the question I want to get to, and you say one of your developers, how that had to be a little bit complex to set up. Now, RSS, anyone can do. Twitter, anyone can do. Email, probably anyone can do.
Sure.
As far as some of the other stuff, is it difficult? Does it take long to figure out how to implement this? And not the bee thing, but just something that most of us might want to do.
Sure. It is, I wouldn't say it's for everyone. It's not a typical consumer type application, I would say. It's not for just your average user on the street. But if you are at all technical, at all a developer, it shouldn't be that hard to set up these JSON data sources and put them on a server so Statusboard can pull them and then graph the data. Now, that said, we've done a few things that will make it easier. One is that you don't have to specify the data as JSON. You can specify it as CSV, comma separated values, which is easily exportable from Excel or Numbers or any spreadsheet you can think of. And so what you could do is you can create an Excel spreadsheet, for example, and have a table of data that you'd like to graph. You can then save it to Dropbox, then get a URL for that file, put it in Statusboard, and as you update that spreadsheet, we'll continuously graph that data for you in Statusboard. So that's one of the easier scenarios. And I wouldn't say it's for everybody, but if you're willing to put a little effort into getting your data out there, we'll do the best we can to display it.
While we're on this topic, let's take it from a developer perspective. Are you encouraging independent developers to create, and I'm not sure what you would call them for Statusboard, plugins or panels or
sure
whatever? Panels?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we are. We have a special panel called the Do-It-Yourself panel. And what you can do as a developer is create your own content, specify it in HTML, and then you go into Statusboard. What you do is you drag out the DIY panel and put it on your Statusboard. You link it to a URL where this data is located, and we'll show it, and it will present itself just like a normal Statusboard panel. So you can have your own data on there that looks just like everything else that we're showing as well. One of the ways that we use it here, we have there's a service here in Portland called Car2Go. It's kind of neat. It's you can basically, it's like a taxi service, but you drive yourself. There are cars positioned all around the city, and then you check them out on your phone, and you go take the car, drive it to some place, and drop it off. And a lot of guys at work use this service to commute back and forth. And so we have a Car2Go panel that we developed as a DIY panel. It shows a Google map, and it shows where all the nearby Car2Go cars are located. And so just in one glance, you can kind of see if there's cars in the neighborhood that you can take and drive back home with. And that's just one of the samples you can do. There are a lot of third-party panels out there. We've actually been kind of shocked at how many people have developed. We have a sources page on our website at panic.com/statusboard. There's a link there to some ones that we have discovered, but there's more out there as well. There's one site called statusboardwidgets.com, for example. There's a few of these out there, but that's one. And they have a big list of panels that you can load into your status board. They have things like NHL scoreboard, TV schedules. I'm blanking, but there's a million different things out there that you can use.
And now a word from Audible, a leading provider of spoken word entertainment. Summer is officially here. Being lazy at the beach, being lazy in your backyard, just being lazy. And what goes with being lazy? A good book, or two, or three. That's where Audible comes in. With over 100,000 titles of all shapes, sizes, and descriptions, Audible is your one-stop shop for great audiobooks and more. And what better time to catch up on those books you've been promising yourself to read? My pick this time is 50 Licks, Myths and Stories from Half a Century of the Rolling Stones by Peter M. Formatau. After all this time, the Rolling Stones are still the greatest rock and roll band in the world, with all sorts of legends surrounding the band. Told by the people who lived it, this book will give you an inside look at the band who continues to make history. Or maybe you'd like to lose yourself in history. If that's the case, then consider Washington, A Life by Ron Chernow. I've always considered George Washington something less than an exciting historical figure, but this book does away with that image forever. From soldier to politician, young man to old, Washington comes alive in a way that explains why he is referred to as the father of our country. Could you find two more diverse books? Probably not. But that's Audible. Something for everyone. To get a free book, go to audiblepodcast.com/MacVoices. Maybe it's one of my picks. Maybe it's one of your own. Just be sure to get it now and start your summer reading right. That's audiblepodcast.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Audible for sponsoring this edition of MacVoices. This harks back to the day of a personal landing page for your web browser, but it sounds so much better, and it looks so much better than any of those ever did, and especially on the iPad, it looks great. But I want to make sure, too, we get to the fact that it just doesn't have to live on my iPad. You can do some other very cool things with it.
Sure. Yeah, you definitely can. I mean, the way that we originally started using Statusboard here at Panic was on a big external display. And so that was one of the key use cases for the iPad app. And so we made it possible to hook your iPad up to an HDTV either through AirPlay or by a physical HDMI cable. And what we can do is we can output a specially formatted Statusboard to that display so a work group can share this thing and share data. And I think that's actually one of the coolest ways to use Statusboard.
I think the thing that first struck me when I saw it was, boy, this would be great for any office. I mean, everybody loves to have a flat screen in their welcome area or reception area. Invariably, it's, welcome so-and-so, you're coming in today. But this could take it to a whole new level with the company's stock prices, stock news, Twitter feed, everything that is that company-centric or anything related to anything they would like to communicate to visitors. Right there, it's going to be big, it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to be completely controllable.
Yeah, we hope so. We hope we can make that a lot easier than what it is currently. We hope to see it. We've seen a bunch of businesses that have set this up in their office, and hopefully we'll see more.
Do I have the capability, Greg, of having multiple status boards? For example, if I want to have one just for me on my iPad, but then when I take it to the office and want to project it up, I can have a completely separate one?
Yeah, not quite. Right now, you just have one status board. We're looking at ways so you can have multiple in the future. You can kind of fake it out a little bit right now because you can email status boards to people. So once you develop a status board, you can share it with people in your group, but you can also effectively share it with yourself. What you can do is email it to yourself, build another one, email that to yourself, and so on. And then what you can do is load those status boards up by going to your mail program, tapping on the icon, and saying "Open in Statusboard." Then it will present itself there. Now, this is a little cumbersome. Ideally, we have a better solution in the future for this, but for now, you can kind of fake it out and do multiple Statusboards that way.
Leave it to the geeks to figure out a way to work around a limitation.
Right, definitely.
I really like that. Well, it's just one of those applications that is compelling. I don't know that it's going to change the world, but it can change the way you view your data just because it makes it so much more accessible and, frankly, more attractive. And that, especially in our world right now, that seems to be a big part of the battle.
We wanted to make something that was really fun to use, that made thinking about your data and using your data easy and practical. And so that's what we're trying to do.
So it's obviously available in the App Store, but how much is Statusboard? And I believe there's some in-app purchase to activate some of the features we talked about. There
is, yeah. The app itself is $9.99 through the iOS App Store. And then the video out capability, you can do basic video out by just plugging in your Statusboard or using AirPlay, and then we'll show it on an HDTV for you. The problem there, though, is that you get the same 4:3 aspect ratio that the iPad itself has, and so it doesn't really fill your screen very effectively. And so we have kind of an HD out mode that we call that is designed for getting the best possible performance out of your external monitor. And that will fill the 16:9 screen. It'll render in high resolution, so it'll be as sharp as it possibly can be. And that costs $19.99 to do that. And the thought there is that the $9.99 is sort of the individual price. If you're a work group sharing it, then that's where the HD out capability kicks in.
Listen, I applaud you, too, for not making this one of those 99-cent apps, because that is not supporting you. It's not supporting the infrastructure. I'd rather pay you and continue to have you improve the product and make it even more useful.
I appreciate that. That's definitely been my attitude as a consumer, is that I like developers that charge a fair price for their app. I hope we're charging a fair price for our app, but we tried to pick a price that we thought was sustainable, that would let us, make enough money so we could keep on enhancing the app in the future.
Well, there are plenty of great 99-cent apps out there, and I don't mean to disparage anyone, but I think if I pay $9.99, $19.99, I'm going to pay a little more attention to it. I'm going to invest in a little more in it, get a little more out. Everybody wins.
That's what we thought. We thought it's one of the more consumery apps that Panic has done. But that said, it's still for an audience that is going to put some time into it to get what they want out of it. And we thought that $10 was a fair price for that, and would easily reflect the value that you got out of it. At least we hope so.
Well, I definitely would put a vote in for it. I think that go look at it, folks. If you're not sure, visit the Panic Software site and take a look there. Look at it in the App Store. But if it's for you, it's well worth the price. No question.
Thank you,
Greg. Really appreciate the time. Any hints on what we might see coming from Panic, or do we have to just wait?
You'll probably have to wait, unfortunately, but we are hard at work on new versions of Statusboard, so we'll have new features coming and new versions of all of our other apps too. So we're definitely hard at work at all that stuff.
Well, you're invited back anytime. The next time you have something out, please let us know, because it's always great.
I appreciate that. I'll definitely will let you know.
Great. Thanks so much, Greg.
Okay, thanks, Chuck.
Folks, as always, I'll have links on the MacVoices website in the show notes to Statusboard, so you can go right to it. You can go to Panic Software and check it out, see everything we're doing, subscribe to our newsletter. Just get involved with us, because we try to bring you the very best of the Mac community. Until the next time, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, app.net, Google+, Facebook, and for more Apple, Mac, and tech-related shows, including MacVoices, Mac Notables, the Mac Jury, and the MacVoices Briefing. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com.